There are a number of buyers agents across the country. We've had a number of them on our podcast who are quite capable of understanding how to buy borderless. Now, what I generally say is if you're looking to buy a property as an owner-occupier, my own philosophy is I think you're best served by having a local buyer's agent, because the reasons why you're buying your owner-occupier residence are different to why you buy it as an investment property, and some of the nuances of a suburb, in my opinion, are best served by being local. Not impossible, but best served. And I'm talking about the best interest of the client here, right? If it's an investment brief, if you're talking to the right buyer's agency business, now clearly I feel we're one of them, but there's others out there too. But only a handful, to be honest, that can actually cope with interstate buying. If you then talk to other buyers agents who don't have that interstate presence, they'll probably talk it down, Ben.
Oh, there's no doubt that, you're asking different barbers about their opinion on who's a better haircut, who cuts hair better. So, of course, we're going to have a bias towards what we think we do, but what we do is data-led, and it's led on the fundamentals. So coming back to the question about analysis, in any one street, Bryce, by way of example, you could have a $700,000 to $800,000 property, which you might say is a renovator's delight, and in the same street you could have a $2.5 million property. Now, that's not consistent in every suburb, of course, and that's where you're saying it's art and science, and you need to understand that to ascertain land value, because that's the thing that is the most important from an investor's point of view. That's the thing that you want to see dragged up. So if you can buy, the worst house in the best street, that's the principle. That's the origins of that statement, right? Worst house, best street. Now, if you go into a homogenous suburb and it's just rows and rows of the same builder who built that estate 10, 20, 30 years ago, your variances in price point might only range $100,000 because someone's put an extension on or whatever they've done, right? But there's not much different. So the land value is going to be pretty consistent. So when you're buying interstate and those types of things, that's what Bryce was mentioning before. We spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on data, because that's how we can get to a quick algorithm or a quick assessment or a quick geospatial overlay in our technology and our mapping systems to work out what something's worth in a particular area, and obviously do our comps and those types of things. So that is the advantage you have when you serve so many people, that you can actually have a competitive advantage. It's a bit like, why is Man United so successful? Why do they win so many? Shout out to Liverpool. As a Liverpool supporter, we won the Premier League, so that's pretty cool. But the point being, the majority of the riches normally go to the most resourced clubs, and that have the best training, the best facilities, the best research, the best technology. If you want an outperform result, you've got to really get intimate with the numbers, and we encourage people definitely to invest borderless, because the land tax, why do you want to give it to the government when you want to basically get a return on investment that's consistent with your investment strategy? You don't care where the asset is. You want good, reliable tenants in your property, and you want your property to be, basically tightly held and have scarcity, so it appreciates in capital growth over time.
So it reminds me of the analogy that I've used on the podcast way back. I think it was in the first 100 episodes, but it was around the guy who's working on his car all weekend, Ben. He's Saturday morning right through, can't fix it. Sunday, can't get it. Then a mate drops over just after lunch on Sunday afternoon, says, mate, I've been working on this for a day and a half, can't get it fixed. The mate who drops over says, oh, can I have a look? Lifts the bonnet, has a look for 5 minutes, asks for a hammer, gives a couple of taps on the engine block, and then says, try that, turns it over, and she starts. And the guy goes, wow, that's amazing. I've just burnt 2 days on this, and you've done it in 5 minutes. I think you should send me a bill. And he goes, okay, I will. And for the purpose of this analogy, the bill comes to the person, and he says, $2,000. He goes, $2,000? How much? Can you itemize that for me? He goes, yeah, no problem. $5 tapping the engine block, $1,995 knowing where to tap, right? So it's a beautiful story to illustrate that through experience, through seeing lots of properties, enables you to understand where to tap on the engine block when it comes to property, which a lot of the principles are universal. But then you have some nuances around, say in South Australia, they've got a 2-day cooling off period. Here in Victoria, it's different. In some states, they don't have a cooling off period. In South Australia, you don't have a standard clause to do a pre-settlement inspection, whereas in Victoria you do. In New South Wales, it's a exchange. So there's lots of nuances that then you need to know within each state. What's the type of property in Queensland? They don't necessarily want a double lock-up garage as much as you do down in the more southern states. So it's understanding the fundamentals, overlaying them in the localised conditions, and being able to understand. But so that's why I say there's a handful of about 3 of us across the country who do multiple markets really well. The people who could do it have this intellectual horsepower that allows them to pivot into different markets that I think is unique. And I think it's really important that if you are considering being borderless and you are considering doing it for an investment purpose, I will go on record as saying I don't think there's a lot of folks who can do that well, Ben. It's possible to be done, but I don't think a lot of folks do it well.
We want you to be a borderless investor. There's pros and cons with working with a generalist. So they've got to make sure that they've got access to the data and the insights and the team of people, and they're backing it up with their demand and supply tests for that area. And you might be on a good one, but not everyone can do that work as well. But if you're buying for owner occupier, you want to go potentially with a local specialist.